Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
We've got independents in this election who I think we could deem to be viable shots at actually winning a riding.
With the BC NDP and BC Conservatives neck and neck, will the unprecedented slate of independent candidates make for an unpredictable race? We'll bring you the latest from the election campaign. Plus,
we have seen in the past that in emergencies and disasters that people are hesitant to leave if they don't feel like their pet's going to be cared for.
drop, cover, and hold on. Why thousands of British Columbians and their pets are preparing for the big one. Also,
students will live off instant noodles or just plain rice because that's all they can afford.
for students of all ages, food insecurity is a growing problem. How one organization is helping fight hunger.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Janella Hamilton. Thanks for joining us. October 19th is fast approaching when British Columbians will elect their new premier. All three leaders of the major parties are focusing their efforts on must-win ridings. BC NDP leader David Eby hit campaign stops in key ridings in Vancouver and Surrey today. He also spoke with BC Today host Amy Bell about the priorities he's thinking about as we approach Election Day.
When I think about what's core to so many of the challenges we face in the province, it is really that access to an affordable and decent home. It's an economic challenge. It's a challenge around street disorder and public safety. It's a challenge around our healthcare system when healthcare workers can't find the housing that they need. And so that's why it's been so central to what we're committing to around British Columbians and the work we've been doing over the last couple of years. Rents are finally starting to come down in BC, but they're coming down from record highs, and we've got so much more to do.
Today, Eby also announced if re-elected, his party is committed to ending the pilot project that decriminalized hard drugs in BC. Meanwhile, in Surrey, where 10 ridings are up for grabs, BC Conservative leader John Rustad spoke to a packed room about involuntary treatment, removing SOGI in schools, and tackling the province's deficit.
So we're going to pass a piece of legislation that says there can be no new taxes or no increased taxes except by referendum. Let's give the power back to the people in this province.
The BC Greens held a rally in Victoria Beacon Hill where leader Sonia Furstenau is up against incumbent NDP MLA Grace Lohr and a lawyer representing the BC Conservatives, Tim Tillman, in what is shaping up to be a three-way race. Furstenau spoke alongside Canadian environmentalist David Suzuki about the importance of climate change in BC's politics.
It's really unbelievable. And so I look out at all of you, and I look at the momentum we've built, and I look at the hope we've built, and I look at the platform we've built, and I look at the vision we have, and I think it's time. It's time for a new vision for BC.
Furstenau says both the NDP and Conservative Party pose a threat toward work being done to protect the environment for future generations. With the BC NDP and the BC Conservatives neck and neck heading into final voting day Saturday, there are also a record number of independent candidates who could hold the balance of power in a minority government. The CBC's legislative reporter Katie DeRosa checks in with some of them.
Independent candidates run in every election. The difference this time is that 6 of them are incumbent MLAs carrying the benefit of name recognition in their community. British Columbians have only elected 1 independent MLA in the last 60 years. So the question becomes, do any of these independents have a shot in this election?
Corinne Kirkpatrick had decided to retire from politics, but that changed after Kevin Falcon withdrew BC United from the election campaign, throwing his support behind the BC Conservatives. Kirkpatrick, who represents West Vancouver Capilano, threw her hat back in the ring. She feels voters deserve a centrist option that's not far left or far right.
It truly is about democracy. Something was done to this province by the BC Conservatives and BC United to try and tell us who we are supposed to be voting for, and taking away and disenfranchising the voting right and ability for many moderate people across British Columbia.
Dan Davies, an incumbent BC United MLA running in Peace River North, says he's confident people in the riding are willing to support him as an independent. The battle, however, has not been smooth.
It's not even starting at zero. It's 6 feet under, basically, once we have the carpet pulled out from under us. No data, no money, no nothing.
Former BC United candidates are not allowed to use any of the fundraising dollars they raised before the party collapsed. Mike Bernier, who has represented Peace River South since 2013, also acknowledges he faces an uphill battle.
I live in a part of the province where it's anything but the NDP. I don't have the baggage of a party, but I also don't have all of the support, I guess, of being able to point to, oh no, this is what we'll do as a platform.
Other former BC United incumbents running as independents include Coralie Oakes, who represents Caribou North, and Tom Shapitka, the MLA for Kootenay East. Adam Walker is running as an independent in the riding of Ladysmith Oceanside after being kicked out of the NDP caucus for misconduct that has not been made public. Independent candidates don't typically do well in elections, but one political scientist says the name recognition of the incumbents could turn that tide.
We've got independents in this election who I think we could deem to be viable shots at actually winning a riding, which is not normal. They're still long shots.
BC Green Party leader Sonia Furstenau has encouraged voters to elect independents as well as Green candidates to prevent one party from holding all the power. The last independent MLA to be elected was Vicky Huntington in 2009, with a re-election in 2013.
In total, 40 independents are running for a seat in the legislature. Whether any of them will be successful will be determined on voting day, Saturday. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
A record number of British Columbians have already cast their ballots ahead of final voting day on Saturday, putting the province on track for a big overall turnout. Elections BC says more than 1 million people have voted, which is more than 28% of all registered electors. About 223,000 people voted on the final day of advance voting on Wednesday, shattering the single-day record set on Tuesday by more than 40,000 votes. The previous advance voting record was set during the pandemic in 2020, when roughly 670,000 people voted early. India has shot back at Canada after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused Indian agents of being behind crimes here, including extortion, home invasions, and murders. Salima Shivji has the latest from New Delhi.
We will naturally reject
more denials from India's Foreign Affairs Ministry.
Investigations have revealed
mere days after another round of severe allegations from Canada that Indian agents were engaged in criminal activity against Canadians.
The current crisis in the relationship has been precipitated by Trudeau government's baseless allegations.
This is all Justin Trudeau's fault, India maintains, arguing Canada's Prime Minister is targeting India's diplomats without evidence.
There's a clear pattern to smear India.
Square that with this testimony under oath.
The Indian government made a horrific mistake in thinking that they could interfere.
Two different versions in a very bitter public dispute, as diplomats in both countries pack up, forced to leave their posts, after both India and Canada kicked out the other country's top-level diplomats.
Who's the real terrorist?
At the heart of India's argument that Canada doesn't stop this. Rallies and violent threats, they say, from pro-Khalistan activists in Canada. Indian officials convinced the diplomatic fight is all because Trudeau wants votes from the Sikh community. That view has widespread support in India.
The minor political gains should not dictate your foreign policy with an important partner.
At this market in Delhi, there's pride that India is standing up to a Western country.
I'm very happy that India's got a spine now.
And a lot of disdain for Trudeau.
So he is doing this to give a macho look so that he can win the election.
If Trudeau goes away, then I think it will be solved very easily.
But that hope on the streets that this tension will fade soon is completely absent from the statements we're hearing from Indian officials. The gulf between Canada and India is now wider than ever. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Delhi.
Former Olympic snowboarder and Coquitlam resident Ryan Wedding is among 16 people charged in a major international drug trafficking and murder investigation. The U.S. Justice Department claims Wedding, who competed for Canada in the 2002 Games, is responsible for allegedly directing the murders of 4 people in Ontario.
The organization led by Ryan Wedding cultivated a violent transnational drug trafficking empire, one that extended from Canada to the United States, Mexico, and Colombia.
Wedding faces 4 felony drug charges as well as 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. He is considered a fugitive. The FBI is offering upwards of $50,000 for information leading to his arrest. Thousands of British Columbians practiced how to drop, cover, and hold on today in the Great BC Shakeout. And with recent quakes off the coast, Michelle Morton has more on how to prepare for the big one.
Very large earthquakes have happened here in the past and will again in the future. The tectonic plates are still moving as they have for millions of years.
But those quakes aren't always large. In the past 2 weeks, a 3.5 magnitude earthquake was recorded near Tsawwassen before a 4.2 magnitude earthquake rattled Fort St. John. And last month, a 6.4 quake struck off the southern tip of Haida Gwaii, followed by a series of aftershocks. When an earthquake with the magnitude of 5 or larger is detected,
Right now, drop, cover, and hold on.
alerts are transmitted to British Columbians via cell phones, radio, and televisions, giving people an opportunity to drop, cover, and hold on.
Typically, we're talking about seconds of warning or tens of seconds of warning, and in some cases a bit longer if it's a very large offshore earthquake.
The city of Vancouver is telling residents to have a plan.
Part of being emergency prepared is also getting connected with your neighbors and building a community.
She says it's also important to have emergency kits and grab-and-go bags prepared ahead of time for everyone in the household, including pets.
So you have food bowls, you have a leash, you have something for them to sleep on. We have seen in the past that in emergencies and disasters that people are hesitant to leave if they don't feel like their pet's going to be cared for.
Businesses in the emergency preparedness industry say they see sales jump when there is a natural disaster.
We carry a large range of products, not just emergency kits, but particularly in the emergency segment, it can go up to like 10 times as many sales as normal. It lasts for a very short period because people are thinking about preparedness and they quickly forget about it.
But those disasters can strike at any time. The British Columbia Earthquake Alliance says this province is the most seismically active area of Canada, and there are thousands of minor shakes here a year. Michelle Morton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Darius Madavi joins us now with our first look at the weather. Darius?
Well, we've got this atmospheric river on the way, and that's definitely going to be the big weather story. It's expected to arrive as we head into the morning. We're going to see some very heavy rainfall across much of the south coast as well as the central coast as that atmospheric river continues to move in, and will be fairly consistent right through Saturday, and we may see another wave on Sunday. We have many warnings in place, weather statements, even out here. These are mostly concerned with not the atmospheric river directly, but what may break into parts of the interior. We have a snow warning up in the north, but the main story, of course, is those wind warnings and rainfall warnings blanketing the south and central coast of BC. And if we take a look at the rainfall forecast here, you'll understand why. Just take a look at how much rain is expected to come down, and very consistently, especially for the west coast of the island, at least until we get into Saturday. Metro Vancouver will also see some very significant totals. If we zoom out a little bit, I also want to take a look at the wind for a moment, because it's going to be battering the coast quite a bit, especially as we get later into the week. You can see here very high gusts at times, and we'll take another look at this later in the show, but you can see here lots and lots of rain coming pretty much across the south and central coast.
All right, thanks so much, Doris. We'll check in with you in a little bit.
Thank you.
Food insecurity is a growing problem. We'll take a look at how an organization is helping students in need. That's next.
CBC is your home for provincial election coverage. Don't miss our election night special, October 19th. BC Votes 2024, streaming on CBC.
For students both in grade school and college, food insecurity can have a detrimental impact on learning. But as Rafferty Baker reports, there are people trying to improve the situation.
So this over here is our protein packs that we were handing out.
Mandy Yuan is with the Student Union at Vancouver Community College. For the last couple of years, the group has been distributing monthly protein packs for students in need. Low-key brown paper bags stuffed with cans of salmon or peanut butter.
Some students will live off instant noodles or just plain rice because that's all they can afford.
Wan says a recent survey carried out by the Student Union found nearly half of students polled at the college could be considered food insecure. Along with the protein packs, the college has 2 pilot programs. One is a food card for groceries that can be accessed through the financial aid office. The other is a new Snack Shack program.
A lot of these are meant for students to just kind of go in, grab what they need, and then just exit out. So no one needs to know where they're going. No one needs to know who's accessing it and when.
Meanwhile, for elementary students, packing a healthy lunch is someone else's duty. But many families aren't able to afford proper nutrition. Vancouver Elementary School teacher Brent Mansfield spent most of Wednesday, World Food Day, running laps around the BC Legislature lawn, a stunt aimed at drawing attention to the need for government-funded school lunch programs. He co-founded one where he works at Lord Roberts Elementary.
I've seen the benefit of how that affects students throughout their school day, their ability to learn and focus, but also just the benefit on socialization and connection and healthy eating and learning how to cook and all the things that I think are super important that schools should be taking more of a role in.
Mansfield is hoping the parties vying to form the next BC government take notice and support getting healthy lunches to kids who need them at school. Rafferty Baker, CBC News, Vancouver.
And as many families across Canada struggle to put food on the table, a new federal program promises some relief. The school-based initiative requires provinces to sign on, but as Deanna Sumanak-Johnson explains, only Newfoundland and Labrador has done so.
What we're going to do. At this school in Newfoundland, this charity has helped feed students for decades. But lunches like these can now be enjoyed by more children in Newfoundland thanks to a new school food program deal announced by the federal government in the spring.
We're working closely with the province right now and looking at, high socioeconomic needs, areas where there is a huge demand for a program.
The deal works, kind of like with affordable childcare, when the provinces sign on, something only Newfoundland and Labrador has done so far. But in places where that hasn't happened, like in Ontario, home to 40% of Canada's school children, the holdup is excruciating for families and advocates like Jessica Stevenson.
The time is now.
This school food program in the Niagara region was hit with what Stevenson calls the perfect storm. Soaring prices of food, more families needing help feeding their kids, and increased population in the area.
About a year or so ago, we were forced to shut down 13 programs 3 months early. And so that's 13 schools worth of children that didn't have food in their bellies.
But experts expect more provincial deals will be signed soon, many before winter, and the benefits will be felt for generations to come.
School food is not that expensive in the scope of things compared to roads, compared to so many things. And what governments all around the world are realizing is that it is one of their wisest investments, long term.
An investment to the tune of $1 billion over 5 years divided across provinces to help make sure lunches like this one.
Today we got macaroni and cheese, mixed vegetables, garlic bread, and fruit.
Get to fill more bellies and fuel more young minds. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Here we have a look at White Rock earlier today, a mix of sunshine and clouds with more on the way, but some areas around BC's south coast are under rainfall warnings at the moment due to an approaching atmospheric river. We'll have your full forecast in a few moments.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Darius Madavi joins us now with a look at our weather. Darius, I hear it's going to be a rainy one.
Oh, yes, it is. And the rain is almost already here. We're continuing to see that moisture feed into the province, and we're expecting to see the real heavy stuff start pretty much any time now for the island, and then making its way pretty quickly to the lower mainland, probably by the afternoon. You can see that moisture continuing to move closer and closer to the province. We still have many warnings in place. We have weather statements, we have wind warnings, we have rainfall warnings, we have wind warnings covering rainfall warnings. The central coast, the west coast of Vancouver Island, and maybe the north coast of, the north shore of Vancouver seem like they're going to be the hardest hit areas, but we have many flood watches in place. We have high stream flow advisories in place as well. The flood watches in orange, the high stream flow advisories in yellow. We have a lot of moisture coming in. The west coast of the island in particular is going to be hit quite hard because they're getting a lot of their rainfall all at once. They're going to get it mostly throughout the day on Friday and then into the overnight period for Saturday. Whereas here in the lower mainland and for parts of the island that are further south, we're going to see that more consistently throughout the weekend and potentially into Sunday morning. But the worst of it does seem like it's going to be tomorrow and Saturday. If we zoom out here, again, we're going to see that moisture feeding into much of the province. A lot of rain, a lot of precipitation, a lot of snow on Friday. But then as we get later into the weekend, those freezing levels will come up, temperatures will come up, and so we'll see less snow and more of that rain. Maybe a brief break overnight Saturday into Sunday, but generally the rainfall will be quite consistent. If we take a look at our totals here, it's just going to run through Sunday morning because that's how far out the model runs. Again, very significant rainfall totals for the island. If we zoom in here, I think this is overstating it for you, cool it once again, but this is about over 200 meters is probably, over 200 millimeters is probably overstating it, but it's not out of the question. And then again, the north shore of Vancouver, as usual, going to get the most rain there. Conditions across the province tomorrow, as you might expect, are really just rainy unless you're down in the southeast. The East Kootenays seem pretty dry and sunny. Golden, a little bit of an exception as well. And if we take a look at our 5-day forecast here in Vancouver, again, it's a lot of rain, maybe some showers as we get into Sunday, and then temperatures come back down and we see some sunshine early next week.
Thanks so much, Darius.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on CBC Vancouver News. For news on the go at any time, you can always head to our website at cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Hope you have a great night.